Welcome to the Inventor's Edge podcast, where insight meets innovation. Whether you're sketching your first idea or refining a finished product, you're in the right place. Our mission is to equip you with the tools, expertise, and clarity you need to succeed as an inventor, while helping you conquer fears and limiting beliefs that may be holding you back. I'm your host, Scott Putnam, founder and CEO of Inventor's Edge. Before becoming a seasoned product development coach, I was a wide-eyed inventor with a head full of ideas but no clear path forward. I know firsthand what it's like to feel stuck, uncertain, and overwhelmed. Fast forward to today, I'm a successful entrepreneur with multiple licensing deals and products on the market. I'm committed to helping inventors like you overcome obstacles, conquer fears, and transform your ideas into tangible success through proven, actionable, step-by-step strategies that deliver real results. Join us as we bring in industry pros, share expert advice, and dive deep into the world of innovation. Ready to turn your ideas into reality? Let's get started. Welcome, everybody, to the Inventor's Edge podcast. I'm your host, Scott Putnam. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Are you an inventor struggling with exactly how to design your product or what goes into a good product design? If you've ever muttered the words, "I need some help with this design," then you came to the right place. In this episode of the Inventor's Edge podcast, we're incredibly excited to have the super amazing and talented Tom Fekete, lead industrial designer at Open End Studio. He's worked with tons of clients to help take their designs to the next level. And be sure to listen until the end of the podcast. Tom has a very exciting, super special offer that he wanted to bring to our listeners. So very excited about that. Tom and I have worked together in the past. He was a coaching client of mine. I helped him work on some incredibly cool ideas. We've worked on some projects together, and he's helped me personally take some ideas from what I thought were pretty cool to like extremely cool, and really taking all those industrial design elements into the picture. So Tom, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Scott, for being here. Very appreciated your inviting me. It's great to talk to you again.
Yeah, I know it's been a little while, and I know you've been really busy and working on your own, building your business, and really excited to see the great work that you're doing. And yeah, let's just do a little introduction. Maybe just tell us about yourself. I know that sounds like an interview question, but yeah, just let it flow, man.
No, it's fine, of course. Well, my name is Tom Fekete, but just call me Tom. That's the same. It's just easier internationally. And I'm an industrial designer with 10 years of experience soon. And I studied industrial design in Budapest, Hungary, and I have a bachelor's and a master's degree in industrial design. I am the founder and the designer and the product developer at Open End Studio, as you mentioned. And what I do is I help businesses or individual inventors to improve or develop their products from concept to technical realization. That's basically in a very short way.
That's all. And I've seen what that progression looks like. It's absolutely incredible. I think to a lot of people as inventors, as product developers, we want to create better products, and we don't always know how to do that. It's easy to say, it's just not easy, always easy or usually easy to do. So I thought it would be really, really fantastic to bring you on and just talk a little bit about industrial design. You know, people probably heard that phrase, but when I first heard industrial design, I thought, okay, it sounds like big buildings, big metal beams on cranes, like just, I think industrial revolution. And I know that's just, I don't know if other people think that way or if it's just me, but it sounds like big stuff. But tell us a bit, what is industrial design?
Industrial design is a creative process that combines art, business, and engineering to conceptualize or create products used by people every day. So it focuses on the functionality, the aesthetics, and the usability of products, and it's aiming to improve the user experience. So industrial designers often work with diverse range of products, from household items to electronics or vehicles, for example, cars or boats or planes, and furniture, of course. That's a very big category. So it's a very diverse group of thinkers who want to design products and it make them better. The goal is to make the products better than making them more efficient or comfortable or pleasing, aesthetically pleasing, what I mean. And it's, in a sense, an industrial designer is a really good problem solver. That's what I always say. Because we need to solve problems, and the problem can be anything. It can be just you want the product to be better looking, or you want to improve it, or you want to reduce the manufacturing costs. So you have all these different aspects where you can improve something. And this is when an industrial designer comes into the equation, and they understand the product development from the idea until the final files for manufacturing, creating the files for the manufacturing. So it's a really broad topic.
Yeah. I can understand that. And I know there's some lines that are sort of blurred sometimes between industrial design and engineering. And maybe you can talk a little bit about, are there lines there? Are they distinct, or like what is that separation where it sort of transitions from industrial design specifically to just specifically engineering? Or maybe is there a line, or is it sort of hazy?
It is a bit hazy. I mean, there is a distinct line, but there is a lot of overlap between the two. So the main difference between industrial designer and an engineer is their focus and the approach. So an industrial designer is primarily concerned with the aesthetics, the usability, the user experience of a product, and they focus mostly on how the product feels, how it looks, and how it interacts with the user. So they really focus on the human element and the emotional element. Engineer is focusing mostly on the technical and functional aspects of the product. So they ensure that the product works efficiently, meet like performance criteria, and is safe and reliable, and of course, possible to manufacture. The approach is also a little bit different. So industrial designers use like creative and artistic approach to design products that are ergonomic or visually appealing and user-friendly, and they often consider market trends and customer preferences. Engineers employ more analytical and technical approach, focusing on the materials and the manufacturing processes, structural integrity and compliance with engineering standards. So basically, they are better in making the product become a reality, so become a real product, because they understand manufacturing. But there is a lot of overlap because both roles are crucial in a product development cycle. And many industrial designers are also good engineers. So they have enough knowledge, technical knowledge, not just to create a good looking concept, but actually design a product ready for manufacturing.
But
yeah. So there's like a hazy overlap, but maybe this is the best way I can explain.
Yeah, it makes sense. It sounds like if somebody took their product design that they created and they went to, we'll just say as a standard mechanical engineer and said, hey, just make this work, that would be their primary focus, is to make it work, get all those material specs in there, make sure it's something that could go from, okay, I see your sketch or your rendering, I'm going to get some CAD drawings together you can send to the factory and have these made, but maybe less concerned with how does it feel in somebody's hand? What is it going to look like on the shelf? Are people going to interact with it? Unless I suppose an engineer had a little industrial design background, perhaps. Do you find that, let's say you're working on something and it gets a little technical where maybe it's got some electronic components and okay, an electrical engineer is going to need to look at this. What does that process look like? Does it go back and forth where they say, hey, Tom, this looks incredibly cool, but we gotta pull some things off because, it just we can't do it like that with these electronic components? Or is there back and forth there, or usually not?
Absolutely. It's always a teamwork. So as an industrial designer, of course, we have to understand a lot of technical aspects, but we cannot do everything on our own most of the time. It depends on the product, of course. That's really important to mention. If an industrial designer is working on an electronic item, most probably they are going to work together with an electrical engineer at least, and a mechanical engineer who understand different elements of the electronic product, and they can focus on those aspects full time. And it's always an iterative process. So you have to work together with these people to get to results where everything is making a whole. As an industrial designer, it's difficult to know all aspects of every type of product. So sometimes if the product is simple, it doesn't require a lot of components, an industrial designer is perfectly capable of realizing it into a mass manufacturable item from the idea to the final files ready for delivery. But of course, there are more complicated products. For example, a smartphone. A smartphone requires an industrial designer for the aesthetics and the materials and the design itself. But the internal components is a completely different field. So that's, you have to work together with these people in order to make that product. And there are different levels, of course. There are different complicated products. There are very simple products. But technically, you normally have to work together with someone who knows a certain aspect of the product.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you can't be an expert in absolutely everything, right? But I was thinking with your cell phone example, it's really an interesting one because we get a lot of inventors that come up with a new type of cell phone case that maybe have some different uses. And it sounds like that's something like not getting into all the electronic, you take a cell phone apart, hundreds or thousands of little tiny components, like, whoa, what is all this? But a cell phone case, I would imagine that would be something you could probably take to the end where that could be made in that case.
Yeah, that's a very good example. A cell phone case, normally it's made from one material, maybe a couple of materials, but it doesn't require any moving components. I mean, depending on the case, but it's something that an industrial designer could do from the beginning to the end.
Okay. And that's a great segue. Maybe can you walk us through kind of what your typical process is? Let's say somebody comes to you and they say, "Hey, Tom, I have this idea for a new type of cell phone case and I want it to have these other functions." Like, what does that process look like to start from just maybe somebody's had a hand sketch of some type of a new case that had some functionality. And then they say, "Okay, here you go."
Okay. That's an interesting example. I think what's important to say is every product requires a different approach because every product category has different elements that might need more focus or more development so anyway, just every product is different. But there are some general steps, I would say, which is very popular and is very traditional in an industrial designer product development. So at the very beginning, usually this is the stage where you have the idea to the concept stage. Always at the beginning, we start with the discovery meeting. And with the discovery meeting, we understand what is the product, what is the problem, what is the desired outcome of this product. What kind of style do you want this cell phone case to have? Or do you have any competitors that you are competing with? Anything which is relevant to the development of the product. And then after this meeting, we normally continue with a design and user research. And in this research, we map out the competitors and other products that are similar in this category, because sometimes it's a completely new category that we never worked on as an industrial designer. So we have to get familiar what's on the market, what other people are doing, what's working, what is not, what product is selling well, what product is selling not that well. You can learn from all of these things. So you're building this mindset and these skills. Basically, you're just filling up your brain with stuff about the topic.
Yeah. Let me jump in here. When I'm coaching clients, that's part of our process is like, okay, do your homework, do your research, figure out what are all the other products that are out there, what makes one better than another, what are the price points, what's the look and feel, and how does that compare to yours? So usually I'll expect them to do a lot of that, but it sounds like once they work with you, you're also doing the same thing? Or I guess, to what degree do you do that research?
It depends on the goal and on the outcome of what the client wants. But I like to do my own research as well because, it depends. Let me get back a few steps back. So maybe the client actually made a really good research and they had like a very comprehensive understanding of the market and the product and the competitors. So I like to create a research until we understand enough to start the processes, to start the development and create a product which will be probably an improvement of the already existing concept.
Yeah.
So you have to gaining the confidence and also the insights into the market to say, okay, now we sort of understand the market. And now from here, we can start the development. We know enough to at least stand out or offer something or design something which could be a potentially good improvement on the market. That's how I think. There's, of course, many different levels of research, and depends on, of course, the, the deadline, also on the budget. But there are a lot of different ways to do research, and it's very important also to research the user to understand what your potential customer or user would like in this product. And for this, there are many
Yeah.
different ways, conducting interviews, user research. So you can go very deep into research, but if the timeline is short, I think it's a good idea to just be confident about where do you want to go from the concept you have.
Yeah. And typically once you do the research and you have a really good sense of what they want, what they're looking for, and what they've done, you've done your research. How does that process go? Ideas just start to flow to you? Because I've seen your sketches, which are just amazing. Is that kind of the next phase, or what do the steps look like for you?
Well, it depends, but very typically, if you look into different inspirations and not necessarily from other products, but from different products, different categories, you look for different solutions or details or colors, materials, and finishes. You can get a lot of interesting ideas from other product categories. So I like to do that kind of research as well, to start really broadly, and also just look for inspiration from the nature, for example. So let me give you an example. If you want to create a new design for a phone case and you want this phone case to feel kind of like a natural element, like stone or something, you could get inspiration for the design from these type of materials, like stones or anything that naturally occurs. So it really depends on what the target is. I like to do a really broad research at the beginning, but everything that is relevant to the category. And then when I have enough images, because I collect these images, I create a mood board. And the mood board is a selection of images where I try to communicate how I imagine this product to kind of feel when it will be designed. It shows like a guide. It's like a compass in the future development. So you understand the style, the color, and the overall mood of the product. This is a very important part at the beginning of the process, because it really helps put at this point, you don't have an improved design. You just have ideas. So you have to communicate with the client. Okay, I have some mental images in my head. I suggest this direction. This is mood board one. And let's say mood board one is very clean, very elegant. And I put different images over there, which are suggesting this feeling. I don't know. Does that make sense? How I explain?
Yeah, so you kind of do the 10,000-foot view based on, what their goals are, and then you say, okay, here's mood board one, kind of the first iteration of some ideas. And then when they look at that, do they typically say, ooh, okay, cool, I like that, and I kind of like that, but I like the shape of that. And
Mm-hmm.
then do you start to narrow from there?
Yeah, that's a very good next step. When that this is a feedback, that's a good thing. So if they like multiple things from mood board 1, 2, 3, we could combine that. This is exactly what it is for, to at least we start thinking about the same thing.
Yeah.
And once we have a mood board, which is like, okay, that kind of has that feeling and vibe for the product that the client wants, then the next step is normally to start generating ideas and brainstorming and generate as much ideas as you can. And in typically this phase, industrial designers, we do sketching. So we get a piece of paper or an iPad. We just start drawing out ideas, and we do really quick drawings in order to have, if you have an idea, we put it down on paper quickly. And then after, I don't know, 1 hour of sketching, you have a lot of ideas. And you have these lot of different ideas that you can later filter out and select the best ones. So you first explore a lot of opportunities. You brain dump everything you have on the paper, and then you select the best ones. And then you will have a couple of ideas for the concept for the product. And of course, we share this with the client and we show what kind of ideas we have. This is a very effective way to get ahead at this stage, because you don't want to spend too much time on one idea. At the beginning, you want to explore a lot of options, because you never know. Sometimes after like the 10th or 20th idea you have, you start to explore like areas of this concept that you never thought of. Like the first few ideas I always say they are very typical. Many people can think about that. But
Hmm.
after like, you push yourself, put down more ideas, you start to get into very interesting solutions.
I've seen that. I've seen your mood boards that you've sent to clients, and it's amazing what you come up with, like things that I probably never would have thought of. Just using the cell phone case for an example, like the different shapes and sizes or thicknesses, or just the design elements that go into it. It's always amazing. I think as inventors anyway, we look at things from different angles, but it's like you and maybe other industrial designers, it's like you're not just looking at things from different angles, you're looking at them from different dimensions. It's like, how did you even come up with that? Taking inspiration from nature, like let's say stone or rock or wood or plants, and just putting all that into this amazing mood board. It's so fun to see that and then send that to clients. And I know you've done that for me, and I looked at it like, whoa, how did you even do that? And I know that's part of that creative process. And it's really fun to start narrowing it down. Then you say, okay, I like the shape of that, but we need to talk about colors or textures. And then is it like clay? Like you just start to kind of form it? What does that look like as you start narrowing it down even further?
In a way, yeah, it's a good example. Clay, it's like, because you're drawing, you can do whatever, and it's very quick. So you can quickly create a shape or a form, and you can decide, okay, you like that part, but you don't like that part. So you can very quickly improve your ideas, and it saves a lot of time, because if you would have to do the same with a physical prototype, you have to spend hours to make one concept. But if you can just draw quickly and create sketches of your ideas, you can very quickly get to a concept where you're happy with. In terms of how we do it, what I do is I take a lot of notes while I'm doing the sketches. So I create, let's say I have an idea, I draw it down, and then I try to make some key annotations, write it there. Okay, I like this part over here. Well, what if we do this? What if we do that? Like, what if is a very common question when we are designing, because if you ask what if, you start to think outside of the box. And especially if you try to think, is there a better way to do this? Or is there a different way to solve that? I'm speaking really in general terms, because there is no like an exact product except the cell phone case. But this is very true for a lot of steps, where at every step of the way, you can ask this question, is there a better way to do this? And maybe if you ask this question when you are designing your cell phone case, you might say that, okay, well, what if I use a different material? What if I do this or that? Or what if I, remove the back? I don't know. I'm just making things up now. But if you have these questions and you answer them with your ideas and concepts, you can get into a very interesting field where you suddenly have interesting ideas. And normally what I do is I do this until I have a couple of pages full of sketches. And then by intuition and experience, I can select the ones that I'm confident that in the future, if we develop it further, it could be a good product. But of course, this is like very beginning, first step. But there's also a lot of intuition involved, because industrial designers have to understand manufacturing and the business aspect as well, not just the aesthetics and functional aspect. So if I feel, for example, that this cell phone case looks nice, and it looks like it's a feasible product and it could be manufactured for the budget, I would say that that's a direction, and I might want to explore it further. And then, of course, we communicate a lot with the clients and we share our ideas. And normally these feedbacks are really valuable. And then we can decide together where to move on and which concept to develop further.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I'd imagine in the beginning, you need to gather a lot of information from them, because you're also thinking about, you mentioned cost.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times inventors, me included, we want to make something really amazing and really cool. And we're not really that concerned about cost. And then we pitch that to a company and they're like, well, okay, this looks amazing, but there's no way we can make that at a price point that even comes close to making sense for a retail customer. So knowing that, I guess from the beginning for you designing it, you can be thinking about, okay, we're not, all the inspirations and all the sketches, but we also need to think about the manufacturing and getting costs down. Is that typically, I guess, in terms of the challenges for you, is cost always a big concern, or does that sort of come later?
That's a very good question. It depends. It depends on the project, but typically, if somebody is thinking of putting a product on the market, cost is very important to think of from the beginning. So if you know that you want to sell an item for X amount, and let's say you know that it's going to be half of that price to manufacture the product, you have like a very big constraint because of the price. And this is very difficult. It's a complex equation because sometimes as industrial designers, we have to suggest concepts that we feel that will fit in the budget, but we don't know that yet because we need to talk with the factory and propose them a sort of finished concept in order to get some feedback that, hey, what are their estimation for this product cost? So at the beginning, it's not a bad thing if we have concepts or ideas when you don't consider cost that much. And I'll tell you why. At the beginning, if you go a bit broad and you create crazy ideas or very expensive ones, it's always easier to reduce the cost later when you know for a fact how much each component costs or how much the manufacturing would cost. It's easier to reduce a concept, which is very crazy, than improve it later. So at this stage, when we are thinking about just a concept, we try to go a bit broad and not consider cost that much, but still it's in the back of our head.
Yeah, I'd imagine in the beginning too, when you're in the creative process and things are kind of free flowing and they're natural and you're just wanting to get it all out there. If you had cost as kind of this governor stopping some of that, I can see where it would feel a little bit stifling versus okay, I'm going to get it all on paper and then like we can kind of reel it in a little bit. I think we like to see what's possible, because I'd imagine if you were very constraining and restrictive in the beginning, you might show them ideas like, well, that just looks like a normal phone case. And you're like, wow, you need it to be at a certain cost. Well, there's nothing really cool about that versus, whoa, let it flow and then start dealing with how to make it fit the cost, but hang on to those elements, right?
That's very true. And that's why I said it really depends on the project. But in general, at the beginning, it's nice to keep the imagination wide open and then narrow everything down when you progress further in the project and fine tune it until you have something that both looks cool and functional, is an improvement, but still capable of being a mass produced item. It's very complicated, but in a way it's not. At the beginning, it's nice to be very imaginative, I have to say.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think for a lot of us as inventors, we approach product development and product design from a place of just our own creativity. We kind of see an image in our mind and we put it on paper and we start playing around with it, or maybe we play with physical prototypes. But unless you've had some real training and experience, we're just kind of designing things the way we like them. And I know for a lot of people, there's kind of that whole Swiss Army knife concept. Like, okay, I want a cell phone case that has a flip up knife and a flip up flashlight, and it has a bunch of extra USB things and a solar panel. Okay, Tom, go. I'd imagine the first question is like, how much are we going to sell these for? How do you deal with that? Sort of like getting to that minimal viable product, but really keeping a lot of the cool stuff intact.
Oh yeah, the Swiss Army knife is very common actually at the beginning. If somebody is new to product development or as an inventor or even in industrial design, it's very common to overcomplicate things. They want to put a lot of things into one product that should not supposed to have those features. A Swiss Army knife is an exceptional example because the utility of the Swiss Army knife is to have as many tools in one item as you can when you go out camping. So it makes sense there. But if you have a flashlight, for example, or a hammer, it's not always better to stuff as much different features in it because it's not going to be that much better. I don't know if that makes sense, but I like the approach of creating simple but functional products that are an improvement of their existing product, or just in their solution, they are very simple and clever. That's what I prefer. That's what I consider as good design. If something is very simple, but offers a very good function.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense. Thinking of the hammer example, it's like instead of saying, okay, let's take this hammer and let's turn it into also pliers and it's also a flashlight and the hammer's
Yeah.
also these other things. What about just making it hit nails better? Like just keeping it simple or design the handle in a way that's more comfortable, that saves you energy when you're hammering or
Yeah.
is more efficient, things like
Yeah.
that.
These are interesting. These are like questions that you can add, like industrial design. We also ask ourselves when we develop the product, like, can we somehow make it easier to put a nail in the wall? If yes, how? And then so asking the right questions really helps moving forward to develop a concept.
Yeah, I loved what you were saying about the what if. So, what advice would you give, let's say, a new inventor or even a seasoned inventor that doesn't have any industrial design experience, are not engineers, they haven't really had any experience in the field of any of that stuff?
Mm.
What are some other takeaways? I love the what if concept, even for us as inventors, as we're designing, like, what if I did this or what if I took this away? And just continuing to ask what if. What are some other takeaways for the average inventor as they're approaching their own designs?
Well, one of the most important things, in my opinion, is always to keep the user in mind. And what I mean by this is, many times, an inventor or a product developer, they have an idea and then they always think of the things that they want in this product. But if you are designing a product for elderly people or children or anyone who is a specific group, you have to think in their shoes. You have to design for them and not for yourself. So you have to talk to them. You have to figure out what are their pain points. You really have to understand that it's not about you in this case. At the beginning, it's nice if you want to invent something or working on a product. If you design something that you're familiar with and you're actively using, it could be an easy way to start because you already understand the problem, you already understand the pain points because you are also a user of backpack or whatever. So that could be also a suggestion that if you want to invent something or work on a product improvement, it's good to choose something that you are really familiar with and you have a lot of experience with. Because otherwise, if you want to improve something that you are new to, I think you will have a lot of problems down the line. Also, another suggestion I think is that it's good to keep things simple. Don't overcomplicate products. It's better to keep everything very minimalistic and preferably try to reduce features while keeping the function, but it's never really a good direction to just add more and overcomplicate and make a Swiss Army knife. That's, for me, I think one of the most important takeaways I could give, because it's going to add cost. It's going to add complications. It's going to be very difficult to manufacture. So I think it's better to keep everything simple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. To your point, when I was designing the SWAT and Scoop, it's just me kind of just thinking about what I would want. The original design was very big and it had a sliding thing, like a trap door that would trap bugs in there, and a big hook at the end and bigger handle, and there was just a lot going on. And I designed it that way. I had it rendered that way. It went on a sell sheet. I pitched it to companies, and the feedback was very consistent. Like, hey, this is interesting, but there's just too much going on here. It's too big. You have moving parts. It's going to be way too expensive. That came up over and over and over again. And then I'm like, dang, okay, what can I take away? And it was like, it kind of becomes your baby, right? Like, I don't
Yeah.
want to take anything away. This is all good stuff, but it sounds like you need to be a little bit more objective with it.
Yeah. It's very difficult to also understand like what is considered to be too much. But you had the best example because you talked with factories, you talked with potential companies, and they gave you feedback. So that's why feedback is very important from an expert who is in the field or understands the market, or for example, they manufacture or sell the same type of product category. They can tell you a lot that you never think of because you are coming from the outside. So feedback is good. It's always nice to share with other people and just get like fresh ideas.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I'd imagine, let's say you're working with somebody, you guys come up with a design you really like, they start pitching it, and then they come back to you and say, hey, all of the feedback is that it's too big or it's too going to be too expensive. What do you do in that case? Just go through additional iterations and
Yeah,
keep.
absolutely. Yeah, then it's a good thing to have at least this much information. So then we can, of course, ask back, okay, what makes it more expensive? Is it the material? Is it the manufacturing process? Or we try to get information out, like exactly what is the cost now and what's the target, let's say. And then, of course, we go back to the drawing board and we improve the product in a way that we reduce. So it depends, of course, on the request, but reduce a feature or optimize it. It's an optimization and an iteration, and it never works for the first time. It always, if you have a concept and you go to a factory, like 99, I'm sure they're going to have something to say to you that you need to improve and iterate your product idea. Even
Yeah.
if you specify everything to the last detail, even at that time, you can have some feedback that, no, this is too expensive, or we cannot manufacture this because of X reason. And there are reasons that you would never think of. Like, for example, if you design a backpack and you make a pocket, you would think that that pocket is easy to sew on or stitch on to the surface. But then you might get a feedback that this is impossible because the corner is too sharp and you cannot make that sharp radius when you are stitching. You know, if you are not into this, you have to understand that there are limitations. And what if your overall concept is a backpack which is really boxy? Well, now you are in an interesting situation. You need to reiterate and adapt to the situation.
Yeah. It's such a good point. And to me, it really comes back to, as inventors, we can do our research. Like we can figure out how our backpacks made, watching YouTube videos and just trying to learn about how whatever product you're working on, how is that made, can help you as you're approaching your design, even maybe before working with somebody like you as an industrial designer, is having a little bit of that backfill so somebody could learn. Obviously, you can't learn everything, and you're going to get a lot of feedback from companies. But I think a lot of companies, in my experience, they don't always say, oh, it's too expensive. They'll just say, hey, sorry, not a good fit. So we really have to kind of dig for that. But I loved what you said about let's find out why it's too expensive. The obvious thing is materials. Okay, you designed it out of platinum instead of plastic or gold
Yeah.
or even stainless steel,
Yeah.
where that could have been a composite material or something cheaper. But like you said, there's other things beyond that, which is like maybe it's the shape of something or this curve is too tight and it just means somebody has to do this part by hand. The machine won't
Exactly.
do that.
Yeah.
So that all those little things add up, I would imagine, and raise the cost.
Exactly. It's good to have a little bit of, I mean, of course, this is very complicated, but sometimes it's nice to look into manufacturing processes of how a certain product is manufactured. There are a lot of videos online that you can look into, and you can learn a lot from it. Of course, you cannot understand immediately like how you can optimize something for injection molding, for example, or metal sheet bending or whatever, but it gives you an idea. That's
Yeah.
why you talk to factories or to work with someone who knows or worked with a certain product category before and designed a product for that market. Yeah, design the product that you want to design, because if you went through the process once, you have the familiarity with the engineering and the manufacturing constraints that you can avoid in advance at the very beginning of the concept stage. So that's why experience matters. So if you want to design something, you can go into a lot of pitfalls that you want to avoid. So it's good to involve someone who is an expert or at least experienced the process of manufacturing product that they designed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for a lot of people, maybe you live near a tech school or a university that does some manufacturing processes right there. It's one thing to watch YouTube videos. It's another thing to walk into some place. Maybe it is a factory or some place in your hometown where they make things. Maybe it's not exactly or even that close to what you have, but just seeing what that looks like. Oh, wow. There's so much more, all these machines and all this stuff. It's like it's so much maybe more involved than we thought. Is that something that as you were getting into this, did you go into many factories or places where things were actually made
Yeah,
as
yeah,
part of
yeah.
your?
We did that. I did that when I was in university, and also after that, when I was working with different companies, we went to visit factories and to see how they work, machines, how the machines look, and how they do the processes. It's very exciting, but it's also very interesting to look into this because it's not often you look or think about like how an item is made, how an object is manufactured. That we are surrounded by so many objects that we kind of take this granted that you have, I don't know, a glass or a computer mouse. But these are actually very complex manufactured items that there are specific machines and specific technologies that you can achieve these products. So going to a factory is very interesting, and it really helps also you understand what are the limitations.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of people have no idea. They just think, oh, well, I designed it this way, so of course somebody should be able to make it that way. What can't be that hard.
Sometimes it's also an approach that you say, okay, I design a product which is similar to another product. And then I go to a factory and I propose them, hey, I have this concept or have this idea. What do you think? Do you think, is it possible to manufacture? And you will be surprised, but sometimes it's very often that factories will give you a reply and they will say that, yes, we believe this is expensive or it's impossible or it's just a very simple modification and we can do that. But it depends on the factory and it depends on how busy they are or how big they are. A lot of factors, but it's definitely worth trying, in my opinion.
Yeah. Do you find that the people there are typically open to talking to outsiders that are kind of interested in what they're doing?
It's
It depends.
more or less, I mean, it's 50-50, I have to say. In my opinion, it's 50-50. If they believe that there is a potential in the product, I think they are more responsive because they might believe that, okay, if you progress further, you might manufacture your product at their facility.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you have to have a level of detail for your concept or product that is worthy to at least propose to a factory. Because if you go to a factory and you show them a sketch on a napkin, they are going to say that they don't not even going to reply.
Mm-hmm.
But if you send them a very realistic product visualization or even better, a CAD file, which is a technical 3D model, digital 3D model, they can analyze your product. They are probably going to take you seriously and say that, okay, this guy knows what they are doing. They have the 3D model, they have the CAD file, or they have a technical documentation. They know the materials they want to use. They probably not just beginners. So let's chat.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I've done it in the past too, where I said I was a student and I just had a few questions. If you use the word student, I think sometimes they're maybe a little bit more willing to at least spend a little time on the phone with you. But otherwise, I could see where it's like they'll look at that or they'll, hear how you're presenting it. Like, okay, this is just going to be a big waste of my time, or this is going to be a time drain. I'm busy, machines are running. I can't just pull off and, sit down and have some coffee and chat with you for 3 hours,
Yeah.
And this is industrial design, it's a deep concept and there's so much to know. And it's such an interesting field of study. And I'm so glad that I had met you and that we had talked, because when we were coaching, I like industrial design, I thought it was like designer superhero. In my mind, like industrial designers are like these superheroes that do like really extra cool stuff. And then as I learned more about it, I was right. They are very cool. I feel like I want to have you on, multiple times and we can get into different topics, do a deep dive into different things. But just to kind of wrap this episode up, are there any final thoughts that you have that you want to get out to the Inventor's Edge tribe?
Well, thank you for asking. I'm actually offering currently a free 30-minute consultation if you reach out to me on my website. Whether you have a product idea or just a concept at any stage, we can have a chat about it and I will give my suggestions on how you can improve it. And if you are considering taking it to the next step, I can even create a development plan and offer a quote. So my goal is to help you to bring your vision to life. So feel free to contact me on my website if you are interested.
That's fantastic. And on YouTube, we'll have Tom's website below, but I'll list it for the audio listeners. It's Tomas Fekete. It's TAMASFEKETE.com. And you can see, I'm assuming they can see a lot of your work there and get a good sense of kind of what you're all about. And yeah, reach out to Tom, and what an awesome offer. So 30 minutes for free and just get a chance to kind of get to know their product a little bit. And I know you have an NDA, so you're safe there, or listeners are safe, and just help them, spend some time talking about the design and where it could go and how you might be able to help them. Such a great offer. I'm so glad we had you on. So thanks so much for your time, for your insights, contributions. What an awesome episode. All listeners, please check out Tom's website and reach out to him to take advantage of this special offer just for our listeners. Share your comments, thoughts, questions about the episode. And be sure to connect with us on social media as well. We're building our tribe of people and we want to continue offering really valuable information. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe and smash the like button and hit the notifications bell as well. And you'll continue to be notified about future episodes. And Tom, I'm super excited to have you back on the show again. We'll go into
pleasure.
we'll go into some other concept and do a deeper dive into some things.
Thank you so much, Scott, for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I'm looking forward to coming back in a future episode.
Well, we look forward to having you back, and it's such an honor to have you on. You're such an amazing, talented guy. So I hope people got a lot from listening to the episode, and I really encourage people to reach out to Tom. Such an amazing talent and such a really cool guy to work with. You know, your communication is great. Everybody that I've sent to you that's worked with you has absolutely loved it. So thanks for doing great work. Remember, invent with purpose, innovate with passion, and bring your ideas to life. Until next time, keep inventing, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Inventor's Edge podcast. I'm your host, Scott Putnam, and if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like and subscribe, leave a review, and please share it with fellow inventors. Your next breakthrough could be just around the corner. For more tools, tips, and resources, visit us at inventors-edge.com. Until next time, invent with purpose, innovate with passion, and bring your ideas to life.